Good morning, I'm Roland Martin. I'm supposed to be in Miami for the American Black Film Festival, but flight cancellations and weather kept me in D.C. I'll be broadcasting from there tomorrow, but the show must go on. Next on NewsOne Now, we'll talk about the shooting yesterday at a baseball field here in Virginia, where several Republicans, including a congressional leader, has been shot, is still in a critical condition. We'll give you the latest on that, and we'll talk with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat who's also going to be playing in the baseball game today between Republicans and Democrats. Big trouble for President Donald Trump. The Washington Post is reporting that he is being investigated for obstruction of justice by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Also, Democratic lawmakers file a lawsuit against Trump for accepting foreign money at his global businesses. We'll talk with Congressman Al Green of Houston, who's been calling for Trump's impeachment. The head of Michigan's health department is among 5 people charged with involuntary manslaughter stemming from the investigation into the Flint water crisis. We'll tell you exactly who the other folks are who've also been charged. Also, we'll talk to the mayor of Miami Gardens, Oliver Gilbert, about the predominantly black city, how is it transforming itself, but also dealing with its history when it comes to police abuse. Also, Lil Mama, Lance Gross, and Tammy Roman join us to talk about the TV One film, When Love Kills. It's time to bring the funk on NewsOne Now on TV One.
All of a sudden, we heard shots, and it was clear pretty quickly that there was a shooter there with a high-powered rifle.
He was crouched behind the stands, and he had a AK-47.
Steve Scalise, one of the members of Majority Whip in the House, was hit in the hip.
We can't help him. We're helpless. I mean, we've got bats versus rifle.
We have another one down. I think it was a total of 5 down.
That was a look at the horrific scene yesterday just outside the nation's capital, where Republican lawmakers were practicing for their annual charity baseball game against Democratic colleagues when a man, angry with President Trump, opened fire. The video was captured by an eyewitness on his cell phone. The lone gunman shot 4 people, including the number 3 ranking Republican in the leadership, Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise, who was seriously injured. Scalise lay injured on the ball field as everyone else scurried for cover. Ironically, it was 2 of Scalise's security detail, both African-American, who shot and killed the gunman, preventing a full-scale massacre. Congressman Joe Barton was there with his 2 young sons.
Scalise's security detail and the Capitol Hill Police immediately began to return fire, and the Alexandria Police also immediately came and began to return fire. They shot the shooter, and I think the security detail saved a lot of lives because they attacked the shooter.
The gunman was identified by police as James Hodgkinson, a 66-year-old unemployed home inspector from Illinois who lived out of his van in Virginia where the shooting took place. His social media postings contain anti-Trump and anti-GOP rants. He served as a volunteer for Senator Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. Sanders took to the Senate floor yesterday after the shooting to express his anger.
I am sickened by this despicable act, and let me be as clear as I can be. Violence of any kind is unacceptable in our society, and I condemn this action in the strongest possible terms.
Now, the FBI continues to investigate this shooting. Many lawmakers are blaming it on the harsh rhetoric and divisiveness that has become a part of the political discourse in America since the presidential campaign last year. Yesterday, President Donald Trump called for unity.
We may have our differences, but we do well in times like these to remember that everyone who serves in our nation's capital is here because, above all, They love our country.
Now, Congressman Scalise remains in critical condition at a Washington, D.C. hospital. He was shot in the left hip and suffered broken bones, injuries to his organs, and severe bleeding. He had one surgery, and doctors say more are expected. Now, the two Capitol Hill police officers were injured as well as a congressional staffer and a lobbyist. The two officers, Crystal Griner and David Bailey, are the two Capitol Police heroes who have been hailed by members of Congress for their quick action. They say if it was not for them, even though they were shot, not for them returning fire, then they believe others would have still been injured. Please put the photo back up. These are the photos of those two officers, both African American. On the left, you see Bailey. On the right, you see Griner. Last night, President Donald Trump visited the hospital with Steve Scalise, also stopped by the hospital. Please put the photo back up of Griner, as well as her wife, also Bailey, according to various reports, is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And so both of them longtime Capitol Hill police officers. And again, according to the folks on the scene, if it was not for them returning fire, they say many others could have been easily killed by this gunman. So we certainly want to express our thanks for their courage, even though they were shot and they continue to return fire. Joining us now on the phone from D.C. is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, who will be playing in today's congressional baseball game. Congressman, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Rowan.
First and foremost, both Democrats and Republicans practice for this game. It's an annual event. And it's one of those things that people are still stunned, still trying to figure out what happened here, whether or not this guy was casing this place out, whether he just simply walked upon them. Your sense of the mood of members of Congress?
Well, it was a very sad and surreal day yesterday. Everyone was shocked that this could happen. You know, the annual Congressional baseball game has become a great tradition in various forms that has taken place for the last 100 years. It's a time where we're very competitive on the field against each other, but all come together afterward to celebrate the fact that we play this game not simply to enjoy a pastime that we all experienced in our youth, but for a variety of charities in the Washington, D.C. area that benefit young people who might otherwise not have some opportunities to engage in recreational activity, as well as, in addition, and in honor to the two officers who were so brave, as you indicated. Roland today will be dedicating some of the funds that are raised to a slain officer fund.
Congressman Jeffries, should this game today still be played?
You know, I was a little bit surprised initially when the decision was made collectively by the coaches and the leadership that we were going to move forward. But the more I thought about it, I realized that whenever things like this happen that are designed to be disruptive, particularly an act of political violence, which is what took place here, we have always, as Americans, rallied together, demonstrated that our lives will not be disrupted. We must find an appropriate way, as I'm sure is going to be done, to honor those who were struck yesterday, a few of whom, including Representative Scalise, are still struggling through injuries, and hopefully we'll all continue to pray for a full and swift and comprehensive recovery. So I'm comfortable with the notion that we are moving forward. It's consistent with what America has done in other instances of traumatic acts taking place. And so there's no reason why members of Congress shouldn't continue to set that example.
One of the issues we've heard folks talk about is that this discourse, a divisiveness taking place. And do you believe that that is the case, that the fiery rhetoric on the left and the right is poisoning the well, if you will?
Well, this was a very contentious political campaign. It was extended, began for many people a year and a half prior to the election. It was intense on both sides in terms of primaries as well as, of course, the general election. And I think we would all take care, on the left or on the right, Democrats and Republicans, people in the White House and people in Congress, people inside the Beltway and outside the Beltway, to lower the temperature on some of the rhetoric that all of us collectively use. We can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. At the same time, of course, we're all going to continue to hold firm to our principles. That's part of what has made America an exceptional nation, the opportunity to discuss and debate vigorously issues, as well as for the citizenry to petition their government to engage their representatives in town hall meetings and in other forums. But I think we would all take care to perhaps use this tragic incident as a moment of clarity in terms of how we conduct ourselves moving forward.
All right, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland.
Let's go to our panel assembled there in Miami. Vanessa Woodward-Byers, creator and editor-in-chief of blogging Black Miami, Fabiola Fleuranvil, CEO of Blueprint Creative Group, and Marlon Hill, partner at Hamilton, Miller, and Berthel. I will ask each one of you, when you hear this talk about rhetoric, about the back and forth, do you believe that that's why we're in the position we're in now? Or is this simply a lone gunman who decided to do something crazy?
Definitely, I think that the rhetoric and tone across the country and across the world definitely needs to be brought down. And it's, it starts at the top. Whether in Congress or in the the presidential Oval Office, we definitely need to ratchet down the conversation, whether online or offline as well.
Well, I would say that hopefully that this is just an isolated incident in terms of how that tone and the high temperature has led an individual to act. But to echo what Marlon just said, we do need to find a way to bring some type of balance to the conversation so that we don't continue to see these types of reactions.
Good morning. I think that, yes, we do need to temper our comments. However, we need to start with Donald Trump because he has a large part in the tone and just the tenor of everything that takes place in this country. It's far, far different from the calming nature of President Obama. So yes, we need to, but our leadership needs to set the example.
One of the things that also jumps out,
has an opportunity.
One of the things that jumps out that I found to be interesting yesterday, a lot of national media outlets were very afraid to initially describe this shooter as being white. And here's something that I saw also being discussed on social media. If this shooter was Muslim, there would have been a totally different reaction in terms of, oh my God, this is terrorism. The shooter's a white male. So how is it that, again, if this was a Muslim shooter, everyone would jump to the conclusion that it's automatically terrorism and we should be investigating all Muslims in this country, but a white guy shoots him and, okay, it's an isolated incident. What does that say about how we view terrorism? Because this is also terrorism.
Well, Roland, it's not just how we view terrorism, it's how we view extremism, right? Extremism is everywhere, whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's in Alexandria or Southeast Louisiana, it's everywhere, right? So, but certainly there are certain images that come to mind, whether it's a black man or what his religion is, or if he's a person of color, that definitely makes a difference as to how the general society views it. So that contributes to the tone as well.
And that also speaks to the role that media plays in how it feeds the perception, the public perception in the way they cover and how they also play into the sensitivity of certain topics and issues. So this is a good example of it.
Yes, it's a perfect example, and this is why we need black media, and we need to keep everything real and keep it 100. If it's a black man or a person of color, then of course that person gets characterized a certain way. If it's someone who is Caucasian, we've had several incidents of domestic terrorism here in this country, but we don't hear about a call to ban travel of white males in the country. We've had several incidents. We just have to take people as people, and when someone does something wrong, it's wrong, and that's it. But we as people of color and people in the media, again, I'm going to agree with Fabiola, we set that tone also.
All right, hold tight 1 second, folks. I want to go to our next story. Even though yesterday's shooting dominated most of the attention, it did not totally shut down the issue of focusing on President Donald Trump and Russia. The Washington Post reported that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is now investigating whether President Trump tried to obstruct justice. The obstruction of justice probe began shortly after, actually happened before. It began before the firing of James Comey by the FBI. But Mueller now, after he was named special prosecutor, after he was fired, is now picking that up. Now, I guess Comey had been investigating a possible collaboration between the Trump campaign and Russian government in Russia's meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Now, the Washington Post, citing 5 sources, says the National Intelligence Director, Dan Coats, and the head of the National Security Agency, Admiral Mike Rogers, along with Rogers' former deputy, agreed to be interviewed by Mueller's investigators. And in addition to Special Counsel Mueller's widening investigation, the president is also facing a new lawsuit filed by nearly 200 Senate and House Democrats. The lawsuit alleges that the president is violating an anti-bribery provision in the U.S. Constitution known as the Emoluments Clause because he has been financially benefiting from foreign government officials through his hotel and other businesses since taking office. Joining us right now via FaceTime is Houston Congressman Al Green, who's been calling for the impeachment of President Trump. When you look at this lawsuit, Congressman, again, this is putting pressure on Donald Trump, if it goes through, to have to reveal his finances, something he has refused to do thus far.
Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you for the invitation. And please allow me to express my sympathies and send my prayers to those who were hurt yesterday. It was something that was dastardly done. No one should appreciate it in any way, and everyone should, in my opinion, give their comments with reference to how dastardly it was. I am honored to be a part of a lawsuit. I won't take the role of explaining the lawsuit itself. I think those who filed it should, but I appreciate you allowing me to talk about the Emoluments Clause. The Emoluments Clause is found in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the Constitution. And in essence, it says this, that you cannot, without the consent of Congress, receive a gift, a present, a fee, a salary, some benefit from a foreign power, a prince or a king. If you do so, then you are breaching the Emoluments Clause. I would also add this, that this clause was established for a time such as this. A time such as this, when you have a president who has hundreds of businesses around the world. These businesses around the world are not monitored. There is no way to know right now to what extent he may be breaching the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. Hence, litigation is a proper means by which we can access his records. If the president would but only afford the public his records, meaning his tax returns, this could probably become something that would be moot, or it might expose him as a person who is receiving emoluments, gifts, fees, some sort of benefits from foreign powers. These are great concerns, and I think the litigation is a proper way to go at it.
Congressman, last question for you when it comes to this. You had Trump who said that they're going to donate any proceeds from foreign officials to the U.S. Treasury. That hasn't happened. You also have heard him talk about having this wall between him and his sons in his business. That hasn't happened. I have said on this show that we have the grifter in chief. This is a president who does not care about decency or the Constitution. He is simply looking to make a buck. Mar-a-Lago jacked up the fees there. They doubled it from $100,000 to $200,000. I mean, he is profiting off of the presidency.
You are making the point that is the reason for the litigation. I think that we have to see what he has in his tax records, and I think that there are other ways to investigate him as well, but the tax records are probably going to be the inflection point. These are things that other presidents have exposed. This president should do so as well. May I just add one comment? The president has obstructed justice. We have been on your program in the past and said so. There is no question that he has. And he would be so bold now as to float these trial balloons as to whether he should fire another prosecutor, this time the special prosecutor appointed by the person that he appointed. This is unbelievable. It is unimaginable. And it is so unbelievable that people don't face the true reality of what we're dealing with. We have a rogue president. The president has gone rogue, or maybe he was rogue when he came into office. But we have a rogue president, and it's hard for us to imagine it. And the only solution to this is impeachment. The prosecutor is not going to indict the president. He's not going to be taken into a court of law like an ordinary citizen should or would be. He is going to have to face the Congress of the United States of America by way of impeachment. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I will file articles of impeachment. I think this is a process. It starts from the ground up. People starting to pay attention. And when the appropriate time arrives, there will be articles of impeachment.
All right, Congressman Al Green, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Coming up next on NewsOne Now, more folks are being charged in Flint, Michigan for the water crisis there. We'll explain to you exactly who will have to go to court. Plus, we'll talk to the mayor of the largest predominantly black city in America to be incorporated by African Americans, Miami Gardens, Florida. All of that next. NewsOne Now on TV1.